destroy Pac-Man. Pac-World will be mine!
There's only one chance for Pac-World now.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel where the goal is to play every single game that every character in Super Smash Bros. Is from. As promised, hopefully, here's another video a week later to wrap up the Pac-Man mainline games. And today we're here to talk about the red-headed stepchild of the Pac-Man series, Pac-Man's strange and unexpected rebranding with Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures. Now, I feel like I can't talk about these games without talking about the show a little, as the show was kind of the whole purpose for this rebranding, and these games only exist because of this show. So let's talk about what got us here. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures was produced by Bandai Namco themselves and 41 Entertainment, who was the worldwide distributor outside of Japan. It first debuted in an E3 trailer back in 2010. It was created to mark the 30th anniversary of Pac-Man, and they talked about the next evolution of Pac-Man as a character. This trailer also made its way onto Pac-Man Tilt for the 3DS, which was a fun little game that utilized tilting the console as the main gimmick. It also featured a couple other games, but yeah, sitting by itself in this menu is the trailer of Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures. This marked the second TV show based around Pac-Man since the original Hanna-Barbera cartoon I mentioned in my first Pac-Man video. The series debuted in the United States on Disney XD June 15th, 2013, running for only 2 seasons and 52 episodes because you guessed it, low ratings. The show takes place on Pac-World in a city called Pacopolis in the year 2522. The world was at peace until Commander Betrayus, yeah that's a name, tried to take control of Pac-World, leading to the Pac-World War. What a crazy direction for them to take Pac-Man. They had a literal world war. The people of Pac-World defeated Betrayus and sealed him and his minions to the Netherworld. In the future, well now present, Pac-Man attends Maze High School with his friends Spiral and Cylindria. Pac-Man is an orphan after his parents went missing during the war, and he lives with his aunt, Saphria. And to make the show extra generic, he even has a school bully named Skibo. In an attempt to hide from Skibo, Pac-Man hides in Maze 256. You get it? You get it? Where he accidentally breaks a seal and the ghost along with Betrayus can roam Pac-World again. Betrayus wants the Tree of Life or the repository to reclaim his host minion's body. It turns out, Pac-Man can scare the ghost back as he is the last of the powerful kind. A centuries-old prophecy says a yellow one would rise to protect Pac-World. So Pac-Man was a regular kid who hid from a bully, who accidentally unleashed an evil upon the world, and is also the chosen one. I don't have any names off the top of my head, but I feel like there's been hundreds of shows with almost the exact same premise. I'm not even trying to take shots at the show, I just think it's funny that this is the route they took it. But yeah, this story does change things up a bit from Pac-Man's story. For instance, Blinky, Inky, Pinky, and Clyde become Pac-Man's friends here. You also have the introduction of a lot of new characters, and not many returning characters, one in particular, Miss Pac-Man. She seems to have been left out due to a possible licensing issue. I bet she was probably planned as like an original love interest for Pac-Man in the show. I do think some of the character designs in this series weren't bad. I like that they actually made Inky, Pinky, Blinky, and Clyde look different instead of just generic ghosts. You could always separate them by their colors of course, but I like that the series tried to give them all unique looks too. But like I said earlier, despite their best effort, it appears to be all in vain, as this Pac-Man revamp was seen as a failure and they slowly reverted him back to his original design. The show's creator, Avi Arad, said the reason for the initial rebrand was to tell a more character-driven and coming-of-age story for Pac-Man. It was also a way to market Pac-Man to a new generation with a big push in toys, games, and promotions. I understand the rebrand from the perspective of having more expressions in the face, which is one of the reasons I read, but I think the problem they faced is high school Pac-Man just doesn't work. You have this legendary figure from the 1980s and just try to hit the reset button and make him a high school kid? Pac-Man is pretty plain, so you could make it work, but a simple story of he's the chosen one just doesn't cut it. I do appreciate what they tried to do, but unless you like a lot of round puns, then this show is not for you. I might go more in depth on the show one day, like maybe, but let's talk about the main reason we are here, the games. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures inspired 3 spin-off games set in this world. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures 2, and Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, but on the 3DS. The reason I'm saying that one separately is because even though they share the same name, the games are completely different from one another. So let's talk about the series' first release, Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures. And for those of you wondering, I'm playing on the Xbox 360 version.
Hey kids, I have a problem. The trace and its ghost took over. I'm gonna need your help to save Pac-World. Here's what we're gonna do. First, we'll chase down some ghosts. And we'll throw fire at them. Then we'll eat an ice berry and power up. This way, we can freeze the evil dragons of the Netherworld. And we'll fly above with a cherry copter and scour the land. And roll around in the pineapple tank and blast some more ghosts. After all that, we'll eat a lot of hamburgers. Then we'll be ready to face the evil betrays. And we'll defeat it. Then, my friends, we will digest. With your help, I'll be the last Pac standing. And all the citizens of Pac-World will live in peace. What are we waiting for? Let's get started. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, rated everyone 10 and up.
Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, also known as Pac-World in Japan, was developed by Monkey Bar Games and published by Bandai Namco in 2013. The game starts off with Pac-Man, who goes by Pacster in this series, and since he's so different from the original Pac-Man, that's just what I'm going to call him from now on. Walking into Sir Circumference's lab, you get it? Did you get it? They call him Sir C, which just made me think of Game of Thrones the entire time. He and Pacster begin talking about these 3 orbs in the room and explaining what they do. This game pretty much tells you right from the rip that it's a continuation of the show. If you're someone who just bought this game because it said Pac-Man, then you'd probably be thinking, you know, like, what the hell? Why is Inky, Pinky, Blinky, and Clyde being so friendly towards Pac-Man? I thought they were arch enemies. And there is no introduction of these new characters, so you're just supposed to know them. It makes sense, but I thought I'd just put that out there. Sir C asked Pacster and his friends if they would collect enough globe energy to restore power to the 3 orbs in the room. And that's when Inky, Pinky, Blinky, and Clyde busts in to tell Pac-Man that Pacopolis is under attack by the forces of Betrayus. Betrayus has stolen the Frigid Digitator, which is one of Sir C's inventions. And now it is up to Pacster and his friends to save the Frigid Digitator and defeat Betrayus again. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures is a 3D platformer similar to the Pac-Man World series. You go around collecting Pac-Dots just like any other Pac-Man game. However, one thing that Pacster can do in this game is that he can actually eat ghosts without needing a power pellet. And when you eat a ghost, you also collect their eyeballs. You use these eyeballs to get more lives, but I actually want to read you what Google brought up when I typed in what the eyeballs are for. In Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, you collect the ghost eyes to generate more lives and power-ups, as they are essentially the souls or essence of the defeated ghost, allowing Pac-Man to sustain himself and grow stronger, revealing a darker lore while consuming ghosts is key to Pac people's survival. Yeah, this was a show on Disney XD, Google. I don't think they went this hard. In the first world, you enter Pacopolis. And you can see right away what I was talking about with the facial expressions. As every time Pacster jumps, he makes some random face. Even next to his health bar, he's making some goofy face. One thing that Pacster does do is instead of having a power pellet, he actually just makes a scary face at the ghosts and it scares them into their panic state. He hits them with the and instead of health wedges in this game, he just eats random food laying around like pie or cheese. In the show, that's all Pacster likes to do is eat. Throughout the world, Pacster has access to several different power berries, each giving him a separate unique ability. There's the fire ability that lets Pac-Man shoot fireballs along with do this cool little surf the sky thing he does here. Ice Pac-Man, which lets you freeze enemies and create platforms. Chameleon Pac-Man, which lets you turn invisible, and he can use his tongue to grab distant items. He can also swing himself across things with this ability. Titanium Pac-Man, which lets him become invulnerable, as well as magnetic. Bounce Pac-Man, which takes you back to the early days with no arms and legs, which lets Pac-Man bounce as high as he can and also off of walls. The Granite Ball, which was my personal favorite ability he got, where you turn into a giant heavy ball which can break through pretty much everything. I personally like that in the Granite Ball form he keeps his big nose, but every time he rolls onto it, it sucks it back in. Balloon Pac-Man, where Pacster basically just inflates, and he can float around in the air. This is the only power-up he gets though that also has a timer on it. And I don't know about you, but he just looks so uncomfortable when he's in this, like he looks awkward. And then finally Spin Pac-Man, which lets you spin rapidly to clear enemies and break barriers. These power-ups are essential to progressing in every world that you enter. Some of these power-ups, like the Granite, Balloon, and Bounce one, have entire stages built solely around them. And every time you get a power-up, Pacster does this little animation that tells you what it does and how to use it. Once you beat the first world, the game has an overarching map, similar to Pac-Man World 2. However, Pacster has a location that acts like a home base, and that's actually his school. And here you see more characters who have nothing to do with this game and only have any influence in the show, like Miss G. You can run around the school and interact with characters from the show. However, the only really cool thing you can do here is access the arcade games. See, in the worlds, if you collect enough fruit, you can come back to the cafeteria and play these games. There's Cherry Copter Rescue. Blast the slime to free the Pac-Worlders. Protect the Pac-Worlders until they get to safety. Blast Black Ghost to free captured Pac-Worlders. Catch falling Pac-Worlders and drop them into the near safe house. I should mention here you also need coins to play these games. Throughout the world, you pick up these arcade tokens that you can bring back here and use them to play the game once. Lemon Blaster, where you pilot the lemon rocket through the netherworld, blast enemies to score points, fly through or blast Slimetanium for fuel, fly through power berries to get special weapons. Pacercini Panic, drive the Pacercini through the travel tubes, reach the end of the course before time runs out, blast enemies and enemy vehicles, avoid civilian vehicles. Then finally Tanks-a-Lot. Drive the pineapple tank through the maze, blast enemies with your cannon, watch out for flying dragons, and roll over pickups to get special weapons. None of these arcade games are like super crazy fun, but I do like that they are in here and they add a little bit more to do in the game. I'll be honest too, going into this, I just thought it was gonna be bad. I mean, it was the failed rebrand of Pac-Man, a beloved video game icon. However, if I can give my hot take, this game really isn't bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, Pacster can be very annoying, especially in this first world, Pacopolis. I mean, whoever decided you have to do a cutscene every time he enters one of these tunnels is a criminal in my mind. But the maps and the worlds are really well done. It's really easy because obviously it was made for kids, but to be honest, the game's fine. They have enough abilities and mechanics to where the game never really feels that repetitive. It's not even that long of a game either. I finished it in almost one sitting and I can barely sit still for an hour. And yes, I do think Pacster gets kind of cringe with all the constant burping. But this game wasn't made for a grown-ass man like me. It was made for kids who watch Disney XD. I don't know, I can see where the show gets some hate, but I don't think this game deserves that much. As the game progresses, you have several different worlds like Pacopolis, Ruins, the Netherworlds, which also has a redesign here, the Ice Realm, and then you come back to Pacopolis again. The game's maps are pretty simple, similar to Pac World. You run through, collect items until you reach the end to complete the level. Some levels even end in boss fights. And at the end of every level, you get this little cutscene of Pacster eating something. When you finally make it to Betray Us, he tries to tell you his plan, where Pacster just stops him and explains that he's just gonna beat him like he always does. Pacster may not be my favorite variation of Pac-Man, but this dude just got confidence.
Yeah, I know all about your little ghost ray thing. Let me save you the super long villain speech. Target the Tree of Life, turn Pac World into Ghost World, yada yada. You know I'm just gonna stop you like I always do.
Once you've defeated Betray Us, his Ghost Ray is destroyed in the most anticlimactic scene I've ever witnessed. And when you think you might have something else planned up his sleeve, Pacster just dives at him and eats him and calls it a day. Betray Us, who's now just a pair of eyes, says this is humiliating and floats away. You return back to Sir C's office and the day is saved. So yeah, Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures was just a fun little game made for kids. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it other than it's really not that bad. This game was removed from American and Japanese digital stores in 2020, along with any other title with Ghostly Adventures in the name. In Europe and Australia, this was also the last game to be released under the Namco brand name. Everything after this was just solely under the name Bandai Namco. But yeah, that was Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures. I mostly just did a big overview because I really don't have a ton to say about each map. They're all just okay, nothing super crazy, but fine. And now let's move on to the next one.
Dinner time is all about manners and being on your best behavior. When you're at the table, there's no... And you definitely don't. And above all, you should never ever... Who are we kidding? Eating should be fun, especially when you're playing Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures 2. With 3 playable characters. New and improved power-ups like Pac-Claw. And distant worlds to explore. For a limited time, get a Pac-Man Fathead Wall decal free when you purchase Pac-Man in the Ghostly Adventures 2. Supplies are limited, available now, wherever games are sold.
Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures 2 was developed by Monkey Bar Games and published by Bandai Namco, just like Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures 1, and was released in 2014. In this game, Betrayus' plan is to get Pac-Man to collect all the pieces for the repository he needs to use it, so he can get his body back. And I'll state the obvious right off the case if you're watching this video. Yes, this gameplay is actually from Pac-Man Ghostly Adventures 2. The game's look and play almost exactly the same. They even used all the same power-ups as well. I'll give the game some credit because it does a little bit more with each mechanic, but yeah, it's the exact same mechanics and the exact same gameplay. Just a little bit more refined. There are some cool things they did add though between this one and the last one. Like they added these cool bonus parts, where you try to get all the pack dots in the allotted time, and Cylinder and Spiral have their chance to shine, as they have whole levels built around them, as well as showing up in some of Pacster's stages. Now they become less of characters just on the sideline and more of characters who actually help Pacster solve the problems. Kinda like the jump between Sly Cooper 1 and 2, except not as good and they aren't that involved. They also added some cool boss fights like this one where you fight a giant robot, and the Betrayus fight at the end is a lot better in this one. I also think the new hub is pretty nice. It's not as personal as the school was, but it's nice to have more things to explore in their world. I like going into the roundhouse and talking to Mr. President. You can actually see the Tree of Life in this one, and it looks like it's on life support. Time has not been good to it since Pac-Man World 2, let me tell you. But yeah, in the story, Pac-Man gets tricked to help Betrayus get the repository, only for him to get double-crossed later on. But luckily, Cersei heard the whole thing and made it a fake repository. Then you have the final boss fight with Betrayus, which is like a big tennis game, where you reflect his bombs back at him with the fire ability, and when you break his paddle, launch bombs at him for a direct hit. And it probably sounds like I'm speeding through this game, but really I'm not. It really is just the first game, again, with refined mechanics. So if you were someone looking for the best between the two, I would say 2, but honestly not by much. They are essentially the same game. 2 is just a little flashier with more things to do. I don't want to come off too hard on the game because the new stages were actually pretty fun. The new stages with Spiral and Cylindria reminded me a lot of Star Fox. And I also enjoyed Pat Kong versus the dinosaur. But overall, I didn't feel like I was playing a whole new game. Overall, it's a pretty good game, but in my opinion, not as good as the Pac-Man World games. I forgot to mention in this game though, you actually get medals at the end of each stage. You got the classic bronze, silver, and gold, so it gives each level a little bit of replay value. And those are my takes on the Pac-Man Ghostly Adventures 1 and 2. Now let's talk about Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures for the 3DS. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures for the 3DS was developed by Init Creates and published by Bandai Namco Games in 2013. In Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures for the 3DS, Betrayus and his minions steal the Tree of Life. Pacster, Cylindria, and Spiral, who are on their way to eating 100 packet-in burgers, must change course and get the tree back to Pac World. I think the weirdest thing about this intro is seeing the Ghost Gang just hanging out by Lord Betrayus. I know they're also ghosts and they can hang out in the Netherworld, but like casually being within earshot of him is crazy. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures for the 3DS is a 2D platformer. The game still has a similar concept of collecting Pac dots and reaching the end, but now Pacster has this little jump ability that reminds me of Yoshi with the feet fluttering. The game uses all the same power berries, but you get them differently than you have in the previous two games I mentioned. See, with the Tree of Life gone, they can no longer grow berries at Pacopolis, but thankfully Pacster's parents had left a smaller tree. The game actually lets you hold on to multiple berries. Down on the stylus screen you can select which one you want to activate, and once activated you actually have a timer in this one. You also have stamina in this game, which you increase as it goes. This game doesn't introduce any new characters, but some of the characters who have been around this whole time actually get more involved. Sir Circumference tries to come through and help on a few missions. You also have Spiral and Cylindria getting involved again, but this time you also have the Ghost Gang getting hands-on. Most of the worlds are just kind of rehashes from the other two games, just redesigned to fit a 2D platformer. The only two worlds that seem unique in my opinion were the Time Tunnel and Above the Clouds. I do like Time Tunnel's aesthetic, it reminds me a lot of Pac-Man Tilt. And I hate to say it, but I don't have a ton to say about this one either. I was having trouble finding any information about this game in general. With it sharing the same name as the other Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, it seems like this game was ignored or forgotten about in general. And I mean, I get why, it really doesn't do anything incredible here. It's a perfectly fine and acceptable 2D platformer. It is also very easy and simple because it was made for kids who watch the show. I would also say this was even better in some ways than Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventure for the home consoles. I don't know, maybe I'm just being too polite and I'm really not that much of a hater, but it's not terrible. And if you're wondering why I didn't include Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures 2 on the 3DS as a part of this video, it's because basically that version is the same as the home console version. Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures was an interesting idea at revamping an old character for a new generation. The show lasted until 2015 with 52 episodes, and these games were the last games to feature Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures because after that Bandai Namco went back and they actually remade Pac-Man World 1 and now Pac-Man World 2. And it appears this version of Pac-Man is the thing of the past. I read online that a Season 3 was in production for 2025, but it seems like that might just be fans being hopeful of the series coming back. I mean, never say never, but it looks like Bandai Namco's going a different direction. And that new direction is the old direction. But yeah, that was Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventure series. Going through these games, I can appreciate what they were attempting to do. But in trying to target a new audience, it seems like they isolated a lot of old fans of Pac-Man. In conclusion, I do appreciate that Namco has always tried to find a way to keep Pac-Man relevant. For better or worse, they view him as their main mascot. And even with that merger with Bandai, it doesn't seem to change anything about that. So many new games have come and gone and new IPs as well, yet Pac-Man will still always be the face of the company. And with Pac-Man being on his 45th anniversary, I don't see anything changing anytime soon. I don't know about you, but I'm excited to see what's next for Pac-Man. And as for now, that's gonna do it on this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I personally enjoyed playing through both the good and bad of Pac-Man. And playing through these games makes me appreciate the character's design even more in Smash Bros. And to me, that's also what makes Smash Bros. So special. Anybody can turn the game on and see one of their favorite characters like Pac-Man. And if you played all his games growing up, you'd get all the references that they built into the character. Between the character and the stages, there's a lot that a fan will notice. And I do think that's something really special. But that's gonna do it for now on me with my Pac-Man journey. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I had fun making it. Unless I do a miscellaneous video next, it's time for me to move on to the next character. And the next oldest character in the Smash Bros. Lineup is...
Here we go. Performance for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you wanna clap. As we take you through this monkey rap.
Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next one.